Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 200 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. There's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weird, and not only tonight with me is the lovely Erin Paulette. Hello, Erin.
Hello.
But we have a number of cast of characters coming along. I will very quickly introduce the feeling a bit under the weather and rapidly needing to go to bed, Xander Opal.
Hello.
And the driving a semi-truck into Chicago, but was nice enough to log on, Matt from Geeks Gadgets and Guns.
Hello, it is loud from the cornfields of Illinois. Congrats on 200 episodes, guys. Glad to see you make it so long, and you're giving us another 200, right? Because we need at least 200 blooper reels.
I mean, I've got no intention of stopping.
How many episodes until we go into syndication, Weird?
I mean, anybody can start syndicating them all they want. The back catalog is wide open.
So to speak.
Dump pump.
And of course, we have the oddest of balls.
Nothing better to do.
And the lovely David.
Mazel tov, everybody.
And yes, 200 episodes. Like, I'm ecstatic about this. Like, I'm seeing the 90s come up, and I'm like, are you kidding me? We've done this many? That's amazing. And I couldn't have done it without all of you guys. I appreciate that, as well as the other contributors that weren't able to make it tonight. And of course, we always have to thank, first up, all the listeners. If nobody listened, we wouldn't do it.
Some of us probably would still do it.
We would still be doing the movie night. I just wouldn't record it or edit it because that part's a pain in the butt. And
as a reminder to everybody, pain in the butt, because this is a round table, not a mag dump.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Dad.
Or in the immortal words of Steve Rogers, language.
And then, and of course, also our lovely supporters on Patreon, because you've allowed us to keep this fun, as opposed to this being the, oh God, I'm paying money to talk into a microphone. I don't know how I feel about this. So you guys keep the lights on. It's wonderful. So yeah, how is everybody doing? Well, we will introduce Erin. How are you doing?
Well, I'm still picking my voice up off the floor from that little singing tidbit that's going to be on a blooper reel. Oh, goodness.
Oh, my. It may be more than one blooper reel.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I completely flubbed it. I lost track of time. I forgot we were doing a podcast tonight. I would be apologizing for being completely unprepared, but it's a round table and we've got a full house. So the boys will talk over me anyway. I'm just here to be pretty.
Yep. And since Erin talked about singing, I would like to do a brief follow-up from last week's episode.
Oh, dear.
Erin, you introduced me to the song Barbra Streisand by Duck Sauce. And it just so happened that that as I was finishing up the show, I was just listening to that and like going, oh yeah, Duck Sauce, Barbra Streisand. Let me listen to that one again. And I woke up on Friday morning, which happened to be the same day that the show drops for all the patrons. And I'm starting cooking breakfast, and there's one song and it's the only song that will do, which is Duck Sauce by Barbra Streisand. So here I am cooking hash browns, listening to Barbra Streisand by Duck Sauce, and not necessarily feeling very pleased with myself. And then it turns around. Then my daughter wakes up and she comes downstairs and she goes, "Oh, what's this song, Daddy? I kind of like it." And I say, it's Barbra Streisand by Duck Sauce. And next thing you know, I hear her tablet going in the background, and it's playing it's playing Barbra Streisand. So that song is on heavy rotation in my house. As a matter of fact, my daughter took a bath the other night, and she turned the radio on to Barbra Streisand by Duck Sauce and pushed the repeat button, and she goes, "It's going to play this until I'm done my bath, Daddy. If you don't want to listen to it, you can go into another room."
Oh, she is so your daughter. She is so your daughter.
And it just so happened, as I'm cursing out Erin, going, "God damn it, Erin, what have you done? Where, what has happened?" Sean Sortino texts me and says that he's listening to it at the gym and people are giving him funny looks. So, Erin, you're goddamn poison.
That girl is poison.
Beautiful, beautiful poison.
By the way,
Yes.
for the blooper reel, because Weird will have applied magic to this recording, apparently the superfan strikes again because I'd had the AC going until Oddball asked me to turn it off.
Yeah, I don't know. You suddenly started hearing it, so either way, it's all good. And don't need to edit that out because people have heard the sound and all. I may or may not be able to scrub it out, but yeah, let's get to you next, Xander. How are you doing? Tell us about your afflictions.
Oh, well, let's see here. I unfortunately hang out with this guy who calls himself Weird that has a beard. Oh, you mean physical afflictions? Nah, I just picked up bug, concrud type stuff. Whatever. Been a day. Lots of farm work still. Had to dig up a water line and fix that. Well, help fix it. Discovered that no, it's not a grease stain on the heavy loader's boom. That is actually a crack that is growing wider and wider. Let's get that fixed before it fails under load. Yeah. And I failed to fix the backhoe transmission that keeps throwing itself into park for some reason. So boss has to call the service guy out for that, but there's stuff that needs to get done.
And doing it while sick. The funnest.
Yeah. If I can, I'm into farmer mode. If I can walk more than 5 feet away from a bathroom without incident, I need to work.
Fair enough.
Oh dear. How many orifices?
Oh, no. In this case, I just feel I'm just relatively weak and have a cough, and it's somewhere between a cold and allergies.
Oh, okay. Just the way you phrased it, it sounded like you were frequently having to run to the bathroom, and I just didn't know.
I thought the same thing.
No, not today.
Oh, good.
No, that sounded like typical farmer I've seen in my area, where if they ain't on the toilet, they are working on something or finding something else to work on.
Yep. No, that was yesterday. But the cows had to eat.
So what I'm hearing is that you need some sort of motorized outhouse so that you can work whilst sitting on the toilet.
I actually saw in one of the groups somebody put up a picture of a, if I remember correctly, it was a John Deere tractor that had a toilet in place of the seat.
Well, it is a John Deere.
John.
Mobile throne.
Help fertilize the fields.
Come on, that was gold. It's like mobile phone, but what is the throne? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't all dissolve into riotous laughter or applause. So
well, I was trying to figure out a way to make a Game of Thrones reference out of it.
Well, I mean, it's
a gaming
tractor,
throne,
so it's a lot of iron in there. So it would be an iron throne.
Yep. But also note, I am firmly in the Case IH camp of farm equipment, and thus am contractually obligated to mock John Deere owners.
Especially the Russian ones.
What are you doing, Step Tractor?
No.
But there was also the story, that Russians apparently seized several hundred Ukrainian tractors, brought them to, I think, Belarus, where they found out that they'd been reported stolen to John Deere, so John Deere disabled them.
Uh-huh. One of the few times I consider that a good use of such equipment.
Right?
The disabling
just-
feature, that is.
What
I'm
is
sitting here
the
curious how long they will hack it. How long will it take somebody to hack around that?
I'm sure it's
Is
been
it-
done.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that'd be out there because I don't know many farmers that would put up with that, especially if they own the tractor.
Well, that's the whole right to repair movement is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what would be the purpose of having a disabling feature on a tractor?
Tractors are worth so much money.
Yeah.
Brand new
Yeah.
200 horsepower tractor ranges is easily it's basically house money, $250K easily.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say $250,000.
So
Basically, for 2 tractors, you can buy a new fire truck with all the equipment.
So
Yeah.
you've got the people possibly stealing them, and also probably more likely with in John Deere's mind is the so you've stopped making your payments.
Yep.
That too, or you're violating the license agreement by using these unverified components.
Hmm.
Or you turned a wrench on something that only a dealership is supposed to turn a wrench on.
Again, the whole right to repair thing.
And yeah, that kind of folds into some of the approach by anti-gunner folks. Limited access, limited use.
It's a lot of the same attitudes.
Well, that's
yeah.
also one of the big questions on for quote unquote smart guns
Mhm.
is will there be some sort of kill switch built in there so that gun free zones, even if you bring a gun into an area like a post office or a school, it will disable it, which is all well and good except for criminals find ways around things.
Or
Figure.
Or turn it around from another direction. Oh, you mean if you send out this signal, it'll disable all new guns?
Hmm.
Yep. Well, it's just like with the cell phone blockers that became available. And I know that several schools actually put them in classrooms, and then there were lawsuits and they took them out again.
Yes, because it was already illegal for them to do that. That's been an FCC violation long before cell phones were a popular item.
I wasn't talking just in the United States.
Okay.
It was being done in other countries, and there were lawsuits brought against the schools. I remember there was particularly Israel, because Israel has them ready to go. So if there is a terrorist attack, they pop that thing on,
Right.
or threats of a terror bombing,
Right.
they'll pop that thing on. And then there are apparently gaps in the coverage so that encrypted law enforcement military channels can still function. I don't know the details. I just remember reading the article.
Oh, so
They did that in Israeli schools, and some people sued, and the Israeli schools said, "Fine."
yeah, so that would basically create a zone where you can't call the police.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is if the police already know, was what the Israelis were basically decided. What the schools were doing was fairly short range within the classroom, but not the entire building.
Yeah.
And it still was problematic. I can see that.
Yep.
Of course, you've also got the scenario with the kill switch for guns. Even in the perfect world that, no, people haven't come up with ways to hack around this or various other things. And instead you just got, it turns off all the guns. Well, great. That means that there's a, 250-pound psycho dude hopped up on drugs.
Always meth.
Yeah, charging at you with a machete. It could be angel dust. But
these days, more likely meth.
More likely meth, yes. But he's charging at you with a machete. Now what? And your gun doesn't work. Great.
Well, then you call the police because it's their job to protect you. Oh, wait, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of that, disabling guns, Tracking Point actually patented it several years ago. try and prevent anybody else from doing it. The disabling feature. So the tracking point guns actually had that as part of it, and they did the patent on it. The flip side on that is, if it's disabled going into a school, what if you have a Sutherland Springs type incident where there's an active shooter already in the school and somebody has a gun, they try to go there, and they can't use their gun to stop the shooting.
Well, it's not their job to stop the shooting. That's what the police are for. That's what's going to honestly be the argument.
And the flip side on that is, that's children's lives. You do whatever you can to try and save a child's life as soon as possible.
David, I'm going to request that you implement the sarcasm font when you say things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought my tone was clear. Sorry. Sometimes a little bit too dry.
It was a little too deadpan.
Yeah.
My sarcasm font sounds like this.
Yeah. I will try to do a more smarmy voice.
Thank you.
No, it's the police's job to protect the children. Peasants shouldn't be doing that.
There you go.
All right.
And let me just add to the loveliness of the police is, well, clearly it's the police's job to protect the children. And of course, every smart gun law that's ever been written has exempted the police, even though that's actually the people that probably should get that, because they're the ones that lose custody of guns and might be struggling over a gun vastly more than the average shooter. And so the idea that the gun gets wrestled out of their hand and the wrong shooter has it, if they can have something that would make that dead in someone that isn't their hands, that's not a bad thing.
That has been proposed, and the police union has shot it down every time it's come up.
Correct. But also, may I add...
That's not sarcasm. That's what's happened.
The police guns that will work in the gun-free zones, because they don't have the kill switch thing, well, that's all well and good, except for police never lose their guns. Sarcasm font.
There you go.
Yep.
And of course, the guns that the police never lose never end up becoming tools of crime.
No.
That would just be craziness.
Maybe we should ask the previous candidate for head of the ATF how to keep hold of firearms.
Oh.
Apparently it's with pinky finger extended.
No, it's stored against ATF policy in his car, which got broken into, and the gun disappeared.
Yep.
No word on if it was ever recovered.
Yeah, admittedly, those are fairly fringe cases. The number of law enforcement officers in this country, the number of guns that go missing or are arrested from their control is fairly small. So
that's true.
If we're using the same things that we say for pro-gun stuff, we got to be consistent.
No, that you're absolutely true, but I'm going to say especially the story that it might have been around here where the police officer left it in a Dunkin' Donuts bathroom.
If you remove Dunkin' Donuts from that statement, that's happened several times in the past few years.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although my favorite one of those, I don't want to turn this into a cop bashing thing, because we're not bashing cops. We're bashing idiots who are not responsible for firearms. But there was a story, I think it was up in the Northeast, but I couldn't say for sure. Officer went into the bathroom to do his business, unholstered his gun, hung it on the coat hook on the inside of the stall door. And then when he got up and grabbed it, he shoved the trigger against the hook and the gun discharged.
Mm-hmm.
That one sound familiar to anyone else?
I remember reading that one.
Yep.
Yeah. A friend of mine told me a story. A friend of mine told me a story. He was in a public restroom, and he's sitting there doing his business, and the guy comes into the stall next to him and dropping his pants to do his business, and there's a clatter, and a gun hits the ground and slides under to his side of the stall. And he's just kind of looking at this gun resting against his foot, and a hand comes underneath with a badge case open in it saying, "Can you hand that back, please?" Because
that's not an awful lot like Free Gun to me.
Yeah, I did that whole episode on poop carry.
Yep. And then Oh, speaking of carrying and traveling, my recent vacation out west, I was slightly annoyed because I still working on making time to get CCW classes and figuring out reciprocity for Michigan and such is obviously going through Illinois is problematic, and just having to realize, okay, I don't know where to be armed yet legally, and also it's a useful tool on the farm for varmint control. However, again, without the concealed carry permit, I have to do the little dance of storing it in a locked container, ammo separate.
The FOBA regulations for transport.
Yes. Drive to work, and wait, I still can't. I still can't carry it except openly, and that is also problematic.
Well, one thing you might want to look into, I know most places it's actually legal to carry concealed on private property so long as you have the express permission of the owner of that property.
Quite.
Yeah.
And what else? It just where was my train of thought before Weird spoke up? That just something a lot of people don't think about. Oh yeah, and however, if I wasn't a law-abiding person, I would
the whole
just
process would be so much easier.
Yeah, you just stuff it in your pocket and go.
No, you stuff it in the waistband of your sweatpants.
Right.
Yep.
Because that's perfectly safe.
Maybe use a string.
Yeah.
Oh, through the trigger guard.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like locks. It just keeps the honest people honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, when I when I knew that we would be moving, and I expressly said to my wife, I'm not buying a house in a place that is not green lit for carry permits. So I knew that at some point we'd be buying a house and going through. Yeah, no, I started buying carry gear, and I would carry in our apartment. I couldn't carry it legally outside the house, but on your property, you are a private property where you have the express permission to by the owner to carry it, whether you be the owner or the occupant, or the owner and they have given you permission. It's generally legal. I mean, your mileage may vary depending on the state that you're in, but I mean, it's like that in Massachusetts.
Yep. But just still being, as Weird put it once, still being the eternal greenhorn.
Mm-hmm.
And just stuff that I'm thinking about perhaps for the first time or early times.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's tactical.
Or
Better
bourbon.
be practical.
Early times.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. Oddball, how have you been?
Pretty good. I spent lunch today and this evening after work enjoying my new patio table, and those that are listeners of Handgun Radio know what happened to the old patio table.
But I'm not a listener, so I don't know what happened.
Wind caught the umbrella in a bad way, and the tempered glass tabletop shattered.
Ooh.
So, on the upside, we've been thinking about getting a fire pit, and we now have a bunch of glass pebble to put in the fire pit.
Yeah.
I
laugh only because you made the joke.
Yeah, that's that thing about tempered glass. Tempered glass, it is, and Corel ware. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Like it is very, very tough stuff, and it puts up with a lot of abuse. But boy, when you cross that line, the results are dramatic.
Yeah, that was one of the things when we were at the fire department when we were doing extrication drills. It was you could literally take a hammer and whack the side window of a car, and it would bounce the hammer back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hit it in the center, it had enough flex that it would just bounce.
Mm-hmm.
But if you whacked it with a much smaller tool in the corner, you had glass gravel.
Or as Aaron tipped me onto, threw a spark plug at it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was an awesome video.
Yeah, a broken chunk of the ceramic from a spark plug does wonders for glass.
I had a Harbor Freight center punch that I carried in my turnout gear for an extrication tool.
Yeah,
you just use that, pop it in the corner by the handle. No more window.
Oh yeah, automatic punch. Good stuff.
And David, we haven't gotten your week in review.
Well, let's see. Woke up this morning with a crick in my neck and a bit of a sinus headache because, well, it's spring and we had our lawn done over the weekend, so everything's all in the air and in my sinuses. Been still dealing with my mother's estate stuff. It may never end, but there we go.
Yeah.
And part of it is not going to go into too many details, but we're just still dealing with estate crap.
And there's the start.
Are you heading up to New York at some point soon? Did I hear that correctly?
The plan currently is September.
Okay.
It'll be the second anniversary of my mother's death, and we're hoping to do a memorial service. But that's partially up to New York, because they recently announced that, I don't know if it was the city or the state, I think it was the city, announced that they'd had an uptick in COVID reporting, so they were applying some of the lockdown again, because it worked because it worked every other time.
Every other time.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So,
well, I mean, the Chinese did it, so it must be a good idea.
Well, that's just because New York didn't go far enough. New York didn't weld people into their homes and then take the buildings down on top of them.
And it still didn't work.
I don't know.
Yes,
I get the feeling
those people didn't spread COVID.
I get the feeling Cuomo would have done it if he thought he could have gotten away with it.
Oh.
I don't know about Cuomo, but de Blasio and Adams definitely.
Yeah. On this cheerful note, I'm going to go pass out.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Good night, Xander.
You sleep tight.
Good night, Xander. I'll most likely kill you in the morning.
Yeah. Please?
I'll kill you with kindness.
Your terms are acceptable.
I will slowly poison you. It should take about 50 or 60 years.
If you're lucky.
I'm starting to feel the effects of those poisons.
Right.
And of course, Matt went into a bad cell region, so he dropped out a little bit less ceremoniously. So thanks again for coming on, Matt.
The sequel to Come On,
Are we still
Eileen.
doing phrasing?
I'm not deleting it.
I think we should still be doing phrasing. There. That's right up there with, she had the whitest teeth I've ever come across.
Oh.
We're doing an excellent job at keeping it PG.
What? If you find that dirty, that's in your head.
That's right. You're the one that putting the evil on that. So we get a whole pile of stories. Shall we start? So we start chopping into these.
I guess if we have.
All right. Well, I wanted to add this first one is really, I wouldn't quite call it a throwaway story, but it is, Aaron, this is really something that you've been harping on, and you kind of got me thinking about it and going, yeah, no, this is a really, really big deal. Is that Everytown originally listed It's legal to carry a concealed handgun in public in all 50 states. Most states require a person to have a permit to carry a loaded concealed handgun in public. They have since updated this to say it's legal to carry a concealed handgun in 50 states. States have traditionally required a person to have a permit to carry a loaded and so now they have switched it over to they can't say that most states require a permit to carry because just as many don't require a permit as do require a permit. And that is a big shift, and even Everytown can't deny that.
Cry some more.
That's right.
I will say that when I can walk around with my minigun open carry.
Well, don't bury the lead, David. When did you get a minigun?
I mean,
I would get one.
I'm sorry, David. I don't think that's a legal issue. I think that's more of a physical fitness issue with you right now.
Yeah.
No, I would get one of the Steadicam mounts.
Ah, okay.
And I'm trying to remember.
I can do it with a Gatling gun, but I have to crank it by hand. I want a minigun that runs off a battery.
And who's
I
carrying
want to be
the
able to
battery?
clear forest.
And the ammo.
Well, the ammo's in the backpack. And the bottom of the backpack has the battery compartment. I want to be able to clear a section of forest.
You will be
very
huffing and
large,
puffing.
angry bees.
Yeah.
Yep.
By the way,
Or
what was that?
actually, if I get a 6-pack, which M190 something, I forget the exact number, but it was a 5.56 minigun.
Mhm.
So not very large, just angry, very angry.
What was the name of the heavies gun in Team Fortress 2?
That
Sasha?
Maybe.
Oh, well, now I'm gonna have to rewatch that. But
movie track.
yeah,
Yes, it was Sasha.
excellent. Thank you, Aaron.
Well, we still can watch it for a movie track, though, right?
I mean,
all of 5 minutes of
Yeah.
the.
Team America World Police.
oh, yes. I was saying
Well-
I mean, that would be a good one.
I thought that's what you were referencing.
No, Team
No.
Fortress 2. It's a video game.
Oh,
It's-
Team
it's-
Fortress. I
Yeah,
misheard.
with
All
the
right.
heavy. Who's the big Russian accent goon that just likes to shoot people with the gun? Cry some more.
That's the one.
Uh,
M134 minigun. That's what it is. That was the one that was used by Jesse Ventura in Predator.
Actually, this one I'm going to hand off to you, David, because I
It's
won't.
mine.
Yeah,
I put it in there.
You posted it, and I had it sitting on my desktop. When I get a moment, I will sit down and listen to this. And I have 5 other tracks on this recorder that need to be edited. So no, I've been swamped.
How many tabs did you have open when you saw it? Yeah,
I don't have that. I don't have that many fingers, so that
Right.
It's more.
Yep. So basically, this is open source defense article. Gun culture is 2.0 software on 1.0 hardware. Basically, it's decrying the historical meaning of design for women and talking about the changes to that in gun culture. Because traditionally, up until, say, the last 10, 15 years, if a woman walked into a gun shop and wanted a gun made for women, it was a regular small frame semi-auto or revolver, but there was usually something pink.
Shrink it and pink it.
Yep.
Mhm.
I would say, with the one exception of the very short-lived, for reasons I don't know, the Smith & Wesson Ladysmith line.
Oh, the semi-autos? They didn't sell well.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
why it was...
they had both semi-autos and revolvers, and they were specifically designed with slimmed down grips and all that. And I actually knew several guys who carried Ladysmiths just because they had smaller hands. And they're like,
Yeah.
it's Ladysmith, Schmady Smith. It fits my hand better.
What year was that, though?
That was back in the 90s?
Okay,
think.
that was the point I was making, because while we have always had women shooters, or female shooters, I don't really know which one is more correct in this case, but really the resurgent, I can't really call it a resurgence, the surge of armed women is really only in the past 20, maybe 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
The massive growth in that part of the shooting community definitely is.
Yeah, so I'm saying, yeah, it failed then, perhaps because the market wasn't there. If they were to reissue the Ladysmith line, I don't know, but I think that they would do better.
And to Erin's point, and she's absolutely correct, I think one of the big issues was a lot of this, because it wasn't just Smith back in the 90s, there were a couple of other companies, but that was the pre-internet days.
Mhm.
So how did you learn about a new gun coming out? You had to get one of the gun magazines. Most of the subscribers to those magazines were not women. So they didn't know the product was available, so of course they're not going to buy the product. But getting back to this article, it mentions that it actually references the 50s quote by then president of IBM, Thomas Watson Jr., the one that's always quoted is, "I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers," but that's not actually the quote. He was actually talking about the IBM 701 electronic data processing machine, which was I think might have been the original big iron of IBM. And the machine rents for $12,000 to $18,000 a month, so it's not the type of thing that could be sold from place to place. But as a result of our trip, on which we expect to get orders for 5 machines, we came home with orders for 18. So it wasn't a clueless comment by some executive completely misreading the market. It was an exec talking to shareholders. Look, this is the coming thing. We've got to jump on this. And another link that I tossed in that we can get to later is the Walther PDP-F series, which really covers that.
Well, and also you have, and I don't know if they, I don't think they still make it, or at least they don't import it anymore. EAA had the Witness Pavona series that yes, definitely had we're going to make the frame different colors and sparkle. But they also did actually try to reshape the grip, etc., to fit smaller hands better.
Yeah. I mean, the ultimate point of the article is, in one of the last sentences, culture moves faster than hardware.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the way it's been. Sometimes hardware is the driving force in the change of the culture, and then the hardware winds up having to play catch-up, because the culture has just moved past it. And in the last 15, 20 years, I would say, the demographic of female or women members of the firearms community has exploded, and the hardware is still racing to catch up, but it is happening. And I think that's really, really important, because we're the Second Amendment podcast a little bit for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The Second Amendment is for everyone.
And I must say, I certainly like guns like the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ or the SIG, full size guns like the 320 that have chamberings in 380. It's way more.
EZ comes in 9, and it's almost as easy to work the slide as the 380, and the recoil. I know I'm not the market for it, but I've had students. One of my recurring students, wonderful woman, she's in her late 60s or early 70s. Mm-hmm. And we started with a 22, and now she comes in and she shoots a 9mm. She started with the EZ9, and now she's using, I believe she's running either the 365 or the Shield Plus. She's tried both of them. I forget which one she preferred.
Okay.
So it's an entry. Is the fact that the market hardware is expanding to meet the sociological and demographic change is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. But I also like the fact that absolutely the Shield EZ and related guns are going to have the biggest boon in the women market, just because if we're talking about diminished grip strength and all of that stuff, you're going to encounter more women that fit that bill than men.
Yeah. Well, it's also for seniors.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told the story about how my wife wound up with an EZ, right?
Why don't you reiterate?
Okay. So my dad, before he passed, had cancer, and he was in chemo, and that was just wreaking havoc with his muscles, and he could not, at that point, rack the slide of a full-size 9. Just the muscle gone. So around that same time, the EZ380 hit the market, and I took it out and test fired it because my hands are about the same size as his were, and I really liked it. But I knew that I was not the market focus for that firearm, so I brought my wife in. My wife is 5'2", petite, small hands, not a lot of hand and arm strength. She fell in love with that gun to the point that one showed up under the Christmas tree for her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I call it the Hanukkah bush, but it's a Christmas tree.
Right.
And we then brought it down to Florida on a visit to my dad and his wife. And I took my dad out to the range with it, and he fell in love with it to the point that I had to remind him it was my wife's and she would fight him for it. Because, I mean, for both of them, even though their hand sizes were drastically different, the ease of manipulation was a game changer. And it made things possible for those two spectrums of the shooting community to still shoot something in a reasonable defensive caliber. Because up to the EZ, my dad was relegated to Walther P22 because he can actually rack the slide on.
Yep.
So,
and that's the only point that I was getting at, is that any of the quote unquote stereotypical women things that you may be dealing with, there are absolutely men who will have similar things. You will have people that have smaller hands, that will have diminished grip strength, that will be slight, much slighter in physique and all that, so that they might need something smaller to conceal, et cetera, et cetera. And so I like the fact that it seems that the latest generation of guns that meet this need are not going, hey, it's for ladies, we're going to make it pink and purple and sparkly.
It's identical otherwise to the guy's gun, but...
Yep. Exactly. And again, like I said, I knew people that carried Ladysmith handguns, and they were not...
I knew several police officers who carried that as their backup.
Yes.
The little semi-auto Ladysmith.
And the whole idea was that, look, but it takes a confident man to pull out a gun that says Ladysmith on the side, because they were branded, they were emblazoned.
Oh yeah. Does anyone remember the secret deodorant commercials?
Strong enough for a man, but pH balanced for a woman.
Yep, same basic concept.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the idea is, hey, maybe you like the scent of the secret, or you whatever about it that you like, but it takes a certain type of person to say, well, you know what, I'm comfortable enough with myself that I don't have to worry about people blowing a raspberry with the fact that I'm grabbing the best gun for me. There are some people that wouldn't do that, and I'm glad that the gun industry is not making them forcing that choice.
And the one that I was thinking of was the Smith & Wesson 3913, which the Ladysmith version was the 3913 LS. And it's stainless slide, aluminum alloy frame, the slimline gray or off-white grips. But it was basically, it was nearly the same gun, just a little bit of a slight contour difference.
Yeah, and same with, I know a friend of mine's mother carried a Ladysmith 38. It was some J-frame, but I think it had a 3-inch barrel instead of a 2-inch barrel, and very, very slender splinter grips on it.
Yeah.
Well, shall we? What's the the next one?
The next two.
Yes, the next two is potentially yes. Potentially. I don't have the most faith in the world, but potentially,
allegedly,
yes, there is a threat to Wayne LaPierre as the
and it's not the New York State Attorney General this time.
No, she so far has not been successful, but there's still a whole bunch of nonsense coming up the pipe for the NRA for her. But is it his lieutenant colonel? What's his rank? Yeah, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West has declared that he is running for executive vice president of the NRA.
Has he actually? I heard that he was being asked to. I didn't
That's
know
the
he'd
that's
actually.
that is the second link. Yeah,
That's what I saw printed today. Was that he was announcing it?
Yeah,
So.
literally, I jumped on the reload.
Oh
just,
yeah, he
just to
announced
see
on Monday
if
he'll
there was
challenge.
the update, and Stephen Gutowski has supplied us with, official that he is in fact throwing his hat into the ring.
So I'm going to ironically take credit for this, and here's why. In December, I decided to let my membership with NRA lapse because I said there's no point. There's nothing I can do to change anything, and so I might as well just save money. And so because I'm no longer a member and therefore I can't vote, now here comes a thing where I could potentially vote. So I'm going to tongue-in-cheek say, well, if I hadn't, if I was still paying for membership, then this wouldn't happen. Because
I can't let my membership lapse.
Yeah, because of your job, right?
No, because I'm a life member. I don't want it to lapse.
But
although I should probably check because I was technically dead last year.
Well, they may or may not know that my father is no longer with us. I'll put it that way.
So you could vote in his name?
But that would be wrong.
No, oddball. Your dad was from Michigan, not Illinois.
There's that.
Or New York.
That's true.
There is a very, very large old cemetery in Queens, I believe it is, that has great voter turnout rates. I wish that was a joke.
Yeah, but though, Aaron, it's my understanding that, granted, I do have a copy of the NRA bylaws on my desk, and I have thumbed through it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
By thumb, did you have your middle finger extended?
No, but it's just dry reading, and isn't particularly that interesting. But it's my understanding, because actually Stephen Gutowski does a really good job at chronicling some of the previous attacks on Wayne LaPierre, and I believe the only people that can vote on changing out the executive vice president is the board of directors. So it doesn't matter.
The members can vote. The members can vote for the board. The board votes for the president.
Oh, well then it's never going to happen.
and by vote for the board, you mean they get to vote for 2 of the slots on the board out of a bunch of candidates that were picked by the board.
See, now you're just splitting hairs.
Just wanting to make sure that we're accurate.
And may I add that, Oddball, you repeatedly attempted to get a copy of the NRA bylaws from the NRA, and they wouldn't send it to you.
Yep,
they were less than cooperative.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure my laws, because I know that was one of the times I was looking through it. I was looking to see what would happen to remove Wayne LaPierre when the first talk of no confidence went through, and it doesn't have every little parliamentary procedure in there. Yeah. But either way, I wish Alan West luck, because
he needs it.
He couldn't do worse, and he has been a very, very visible figure in the NRA. He's
very vocal opponent of Wayne LaPierre for at least the last few years.
Well, and as I've said, even if in some strange fantasy land, all of the accusations against LaPierre are false, even if that was the case, the amount of heat that he is bringing onto the NRA simply by being in the position that he's in,
even if there is no impropriety, the appearance of impropriety is the
right. It is far more of a hindrance than him being there is helpful. And in his position, one of the things a responsible executive would go, you know what? I have to do what's best for the company.
Yep. I have a fiduciary interest or responsibility, and here's how I'm going to discharge that.
Yeah.
But also, may I add that it would be even more of a slam dunk if he wasn't a registered Republican. But Lieutenant Colonel Alan West is an African American man, and the idea that the National Rifle Association, the National Republican Association, as the anti-gunners like to call it, and honestly speaking, for good reason. That's one of my big complaints with the NRA, outside of some of the quite potentially criminal stuff that might be going on.
And just a minor correction. Alan West is not from Africa. He's from Georgia.
I'm sorry. He's a Russian American.
Wrong Georgia. We're not doing the Russian collusion thing again.
Good recovery, Weird. Golf clap.
And apologies to all anybody who might be listening in the nation of Georgia. I fully understand that you are not part of Russia. You were formerly Soviet Union, and Putin is an absolute jerk to you guys as well. And if I was Georgian, I would be watching the Russo-Ukraine war with bated breath, because if Russia takes Ukraine, you know what's happening next.
Well, I mean, they've been watching since
the Russians invaded the Georgians in 2008.
Well, there was that, but there was also in 2014, Russia. Was it 2014? Russia.
2014 was Crimea.
Yeah, Crimea. Which was part of Ukraine.
Yep.
So, nibble.
I need to make a really bad joke here.
Yay!
Please.
Georgia is about 2.1 times bigger than Georgia.
And unless you're willing to do the math, you won't know which direction Aaron's talking about.
Oh, and Aaron posted a link that had a convenient picture.
Yeah, so there's a website called mylifeelsewhere.com, and you can compare country sizes to other things. And so you can directly compare the state of Georgia to the nation of Georgia.
So you can compare the size of two things. Is there a way to compare country size to refrigerators?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you remember there was a news story not long ago where there was a sinkhole that formed in a highway, and it was reported as being like 6 refrigerators wide?
I don't know about that, but I do remember the meteor that either missed or hit, and it was given in, what was it, giraffe units?
Because Americans will not use the metric system except for bullets.
Yeah, we will measure in anything except metric.
Broadcasting from the state of Massachusetts, may I make a mention of the unit of smoot?
Yes, the smoots.
I have no idea what this is. Enlighten me.
It was a fraternity at MIT, and they decided they had one of the guys
an underclassman named Smoot
was named Smoot, and they measured the bridge that connects Cambridge to Boston in smoots.
They basically laid him out on the road and then moved him one smoot length, basically heel to head, until they measured the bridge. Now, I would like to make a minor request in the article order. Because we've been making fun of measurements and the metric system, I'd like to switch the next 2 articles.
Okay. Did you already? Okay, yeah, I got you. Wait, why don't you just go right into it, David?
There's a new sheriff in town. SIG has jumped into the 10mm arena with their new P320 XTEN, which is red dot ready. They're doing a soft launch, which all sorts of gun penis jokes right there.
Titter.
Yep. But
titter has the word tit in it.
Yes.
It didn't.
So they've got this, and from what I've been reading, because it's not officially going to be released until May 15th, but it uses the same fire control unit as the standard 9mm 320. It has a new takedown lever because the grip frame portion is slightly wider. It is from what I've read, a 15-round magazine capacity plus one in the chamber of 10mm.
Mm-hmm.
Sharp. So what that means is there's the possibility of, for people who already have a 320, is buy the top end, buy the grip frame, and then simply transfer the fire control group. Because the fire control group is the only part that's the gun so far.
So yes, if you have a SIG 320 that's in 9mm, you can convert it over so you can get 1 more millimeter.
Yes, because what millimeter is the best millimeter?
10mm is the best millimeter.
Yes, and interestingly enough, last week when I was in the store, I went to help with range cleanup, and I managed to gather up about 110 10mm shell casings. I do not have pistols.
Well, that can
I
always
have several hundred 10mm casings.
I mean, I gotta say, I absolutely loved this cartridge, both as a pistol cartridge and as a pistol caliber carbine cartridge.
Oh, yeah, 10mm PCC is
especially I've got to imagine. I do not have the wherewithal to cook up my own hand loads, but I would love to see somebody cook something up using a slower burning powder so that they could take better advantage of that longer barrel, because 10mm just standard pistol loads coming out of an 18-inch carbine is getting up to intermediate rifle level of power.
Yeah, I'd also like to see is a modern day Elmer Keith take on the 10mm, preferably with fewer guns blown up, but you take your chances.
There are definitely people out there that were hugged as little as a child as Elmer Keith.
But yeah, so this is exciting because last year Smith & Wesson came out with the 10mm M&P, and we can't keep those in stock in the store. We'll get 2 or 3 in, and they'll be gone. Maybe they'll last till the next day. Mm-hmm. So it's I mean, the link that I posted, it's a very short article because, again, it's not until the actual release on the 15th that all the details are coming out. But this is pretty cool for folks who are fans of the 10mm or fans of SIG.
Yep.
And since we're talking about metric, I thought it was appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that that we can go to the more somber.
Yeah, this is Oddball's story.
Unfortunately do have a bit of bad news. Knife designer Elijah Isham was shot and killed by police after pointing an unloaded black powder revolver at them after he flipped his car. If you don't know, Elijah Isham is a fairly famous knife designer, has designed a bunch of knives for Civivi brand knives, and I think a few for their parent company, We. And one of his knife designs is one of my favorite front flipper knives, and I've given a couple people examples of that knife. So he came out with, obviously, I think he came out with at least one good design, and a bunch of his others were highly interesting. And yeah, unfortunately, looking into the story, looked like he was not there. There was something not right with.
Now, you said that he rolled his car?
Yes.
So, as someone who's responded to rollovers, even if the person is not injured, no broken limbs, no contusions, no cuts or whatever, they are disoriented and discombobulated after.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I wonder if that was a contributing fact.
And I think, I'm pretty sure he rolled his car. I know he crashed it, which, again, even if you don't roll it, a crash can cause those issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, it's a form of concussion. Yes.
Yeah.
Was it contracoup? Is that the term? Where the brain, there's an impact and the brain sloshes back and forth in the skull?
Well, that's just a concussion period. I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
I'm not an
level of concussion
EMT
you have.
or medic. I was just the guy who picked things up and put them down and tore the cars over.
Right, and the reason why I say clearly something was going on that what wasn't, he was unwell in some manner or another. A couple months ago, apparently he had been arrested for being violent.
So the history.
Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. That, and I mean, just this might be me reading into things, but oftentimes if you have someone carrying or having in his car in a fashion that he can get to it like he did and start threatening people. He started threatening the EMTs that were first on scene and then threatened the cops.
Yeah, this is sounding like a combination of violent history, meaning that if he didn't have a long history of violence, if this was a fairly recent thing, something changed in his life.
Right.
Number one. Number two, disorientation from the crash, and possibly some level of hopelessness that led him to try suicide by cop.
Yeah. And the fact that it was specifically an unloaded black powder revolver.
Right, which of course the responding officers couldn't know the unloaded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I have to make this comment, and I'm not doing it to diminish this tragedy.
I will knit it together by saying my heart goes out to this man's family, but also to the officers involved, because that was a horrible day for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I am in no way saying that the police were in the wrong. If the police show up to a scene and there's a guy waving around a gun and pointing it at them, the officer who actually fired on him has gone on record saying that they tried to talk him down, but there's only so much that they can do for their safety and the safety of the general public. But yeah, it's a tragic event, and the knife world has lost a great designer, regardless of what was apparently going on.
Yeah,
in his life.
And anytime you see something like this, take the car accident out of it for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us know what his personal history was prior to that. Was a restraining order or something?
I'd have to look it up exactly again. I think it was
some legal intervention due to violent behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that was a recent thing and there hadn't been a history of that, chances are something happened. The man was in a lot of pain and couldn't see away.
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, let's move over to even more depressing news. Is who posted this story?
Not me.
The ATF revoking FFLs?
Oh, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah, there was another one in there that I was looking at, and it's no longer...
Oh, I kind of dumped it. It didn't quite look... Do you want to talk about it? I can put it back.
I thought it would be a nice, relatively light thing, but we can do it later on if you want to have it for more of a closeout.
No, go right ahead. I was just leafing through it. I realized I didn't get a chance to read it all that much.
I was just skimming it just now, and it's basically there's a Twitter account called Pessimist's Archive, which posts old news clippings of technophobia and moral panics. So, and it mentions specifically in the article, it mentions things like dime novels. Before video games were blamed for gun violence, novels were in 1904. Or the bicycle. Man defends the bicycle in a letter to the editor. I wish to protest against the readiness with which accidents on the road are charged to bicycles. 1892. In the 1670s, coffee houses were called distracting. And it's just the template of a moral panic is 1, thing comes out. 2, some people panic. 3, thing turns out fine. 4, the panickers look silly. Honestly, this looks like something that came from the keyboard of Iowa Hawk.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly interesting. Like I know one of the progressions that puts me in the mind is my parents were always telling me to put down the video games,
Yep.
It's not good for you. Hey, why don't you, but
Go
playing
outside.
playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends was perfectly
Yep.
reasonable because at least they're not playing video games.
Right.
But of course,
Then
years
there was
earlier,
the demon panic. Yeah.
exactly, there was the demon panic, and
Or
may I add,
on a not a violence related one, but how many of us were told by a parent, don't sit so close to the TV, you'll ruin your eyes.
absolutely.
Yep.
Of course, we all have vision correction, so maybe that wasn't so wrong.
Yeah, but I'm also going to blame the fact that both of my parents also were in desperate need of vision correction.
My first visit to the eye doctor for my first pair of glasses, I had to sit on my mother's lap because I wasn't big enough to reach the
Eyepieces.
optical thing. Yeah.
How old was that?
Pardon?
How old were you when that happened?
I was under 6 years of age.
Okay, before me, because I got glasses at the 2nd grade.
Yeah, no, I know I was under 6 because my parents were still married.
I hate that that's how you date things. I understand, but I hate that.
Well, I mean, it's just like people date things by when JFK was assassinated, when 9/11 happened, when Star Wars came out, which is a positive one. But yeah, for me, that was how I could tell if I was really young. So before I was 6. But yeah, but it's I mean, if you look at almost, and then this is what the point is made here, is if you look at almost any technological advancement, when that technological advancement starts to become popular, starts to gain a following, almost every single time, there's going to be some type of moral panic about that thing.
Yeah. To continue on the timeline, I just wanted to turn around is the universal thing that we hear nowadays is, why don't you go read a book? Read a book. Go read a book. And again, this is listed here, is that reading books was considered a moral panic. Is these kids
especially
today,
for young women.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're spending all their time with their nose buried in that book and just letting the world pass them by.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep, but there are. It also mentions there are maybe 6 argument templates about any social development. It causes violence. It causes moral or cultural decay. Bad for national security. Hurting the middle class. Hurting another subsegment of society. Or the classic, won't anyone think of the children?
I gotta say, at some point, I walked by him once at one of the NRA annual meetings, and I think he might have been giving an interview at the time. So, but I didn't feel like. But I really would like to talk to Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman about his book on killing, which is an amazing book. I recommend it to everybody, and literally I'm recommended to everybody. Like, it is worth, you're not like, hey, this is a good read if you're looking for a book to read. No, I think it's actually a really good, if you are interested, especially in the Second Amendment. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and this is your cup of tea, you should really read that book, just because of all of the work that he did in interviewing people and how people kill other people and the resistances there is and the number of people who can do it without any issue. It's a very, very interesting read, done very, very well, and very, very well resourced and referenced and researched. Except for there is like one chapter in there that is given on violent video games and how they are turning our kids violent. And yeah, that's just, and that is by far it's almost, a lot of people suspect that it was tacked on kind of after the fact, because of I think the book was written like just post Columbine, but I can look it up, but let's see. On Killing. 1996. So it's actually pre-Columbine. Though it might have been actually in one of the later publications with the stuff added on. But either way, it's a really, really good book, but hold on to something the moment he starts talking about video games, because that is not as well written. And the premise, I heard actually a blogger one time write on hey, when we were kids, we were running around in the woods playing with sticks and stuff. And people today,
and most of us didn't die.
But they were saying our parents today will say kids should be outside playing instead of inside playing Call of Duty. And he goes, we were playing Call of Duty. It just hadn't been invented yet.
Oh yeah. We would be out there. You know, when I was playing shoot 'em up games out in the park with my friends, what we used for grenades?
Pine cones.
Rocks.
Oddball got it in one. Rocks.
What's wrong with you?
Well,
I mean
we did grow up in New York, New York City.
Yeah, they didn't see a tree that was larger than 5 feet. So.
Oh no, there were some trees. They were just the lowest branches were too high. We only got windfalls. So those were the rifles and pistols, but
right.
There were no pine trees in New York City.
And that's assuming you weren't, going into sword battles or whatever and just beating each other with the sticks. Yeah. Yep. We did beat each other with sticks, especially whenever any type of swashbucklery movie came out. Yep.
Oh, 1978 was a great year for bruises and scrapes. When every stick suddenly became a lightsaber.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's we always joke about it. Is like my daughter will climb into the tub and be like, "Ooh, where'd you get that bruise?" I don't know. And so I will joke when I see my daughter take like a nasty fall. I'll be like, "Where'd you get that bruise?" I don't know. Oh, but yeah. So highly recommend on Killing. Excellent tie-in with I was reading it and it wasn't quite what I thought it was, but David, you tied it in beautifully into the show, so I appreciate that.
Glad to help.
But now let us talk about how the ATF has revoked a whole ton of FFLs.
Yep. Now the headline is, of course, one of the scaremongering clickbait headlines. ATF revoked 500% more federal firearms licenses in 11 months since Biden declared war on guns. Okay. In the years before the Biden-Harris administration took over the White House, the ATF revoked an average of 40 federal firearms licenses per year. 40. But in the 11 months since Joe Biden declared war on rogue gun dealers, the ATF has revoked 273 FFLs, an increase of more than 500%. So if you look at the actual numbers, and I don't remember how many thousands of FFLs there are in the country. Mm-hmm. So is it significant? Yes. Is it statistically significant? I would say still yes. But what the article goes on to say is that most of the revocations of FFL are from what are referred to as minor paperwork errors. The ATF was really cracking down on this. One thing I've had several discussions with people, and this is especially entertaining when it's somebody who is in the legal profession, because they will come back with, well, the law says, I'm like, yes, and? Because there is what's commonly called black letter law, which is the law as printed, and then there is the law that's applied. So the ATF regulation for 4473, etc., will say certain things, but the ATF agent that comes in and audits the 4473s in the store, if they say, no, you cannot abbreviate the state with the two letters, it must be the state name written out. Well, guess what? You better write out that state name on the 4473s or have your customers do that. Or that agent's going to come back and say, you're still not complying. Here's your fine. Do it again. You lose your license.
Hold that thought, because I looked it up and it's not very recent, but as of June 2021, the ATF reports that there are 133,716 FFLs in all 50 states, districts, and territories.
Huh. Could I get that number again, please?
133,716.
Thank you. 133716. Whoops. I did
Well,
three.
I will always turn around and point out that crap like this is also another reason to oppose the universal background check laws, specifically the Bloomberg style ones, where it just simply outlaws private sale, and that's all. So all sales must be done through a licensed gun dealer. Well,
so I just wanted to go back to my statistically significant.
Yep.
So it's 273 FFLs have been revoked in the last 11 months. From what Erin reported, there were 133,716. Did I get that right? 133,716?
Yes, I posted it in Discord.
Okay, good. So that makes for a revocation rate of 0.002 FFLs. So that's pretty statistically insignificant.
but that number does spell leet. I can't turn it off, people.
Please.
With enough alcohol, you can.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's somewhat fear-mongering, but it's also demonstrating either a change in policy or a strengthening of policy, and it should be a warning message to all of the FFLs out there that the ATF is making things harder for the legitimate.
And it also just shows how much the agency can change without there being any election or major sea change.
Well, there was an election.
Yes, but it's not like this was voted on. This is a new gun control law that's come up the pike. No, just the ATF is now just being more strict. Again, Chevron deference, as Erin says, that they make the rules and then they enforce them.
Yep. And I remember having this discussion with a friend that Oddball and I know quite well, who is a subject matter expert on many things legal. His father was a federal judge for many years. And he had, even someone of his background and his intelligence, had a hard time understanding that it didn't matter what the law said, it mattered what the ATF agent said. Because it was just so foreign to his legal worldview.
Well, and quite frankly, my father was a lawyer, and I hung around a lot of his lawyer friends. And quite frankly, there's also the thing of lawyers very rarely will give you a black and white answer on something for a very good reason.
Yeah, that's because lawyers aren't Sith, they're Fae.
Right.
Well, they work in courts. How blatant do they need to be? They're spelling it out.
A good lawyer absolutely understands. Well, there's what the law says, there's what the cop is going to hit you with, and there's what you can convince a jury of or a judge of. And those things can be wildly different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, according to this article, the big change has come down to the ATF's application of willful violation.
Mm-hmm.
So if a dealer makes a simple mistake, they can now lose their license because the new definition of willful states that the dealer knew the law but willfully chose to violate it anyway, regardless of whether it was an oversight, an error by an employee, or a simple paperwork mistake. So negligence is now willful.
I think what's most troubling about this is near the very end of the article, where they mention that the ATF made a mistake, but they were penalizing the FFL for it, and the FFL had to prove that it wasn't them. Otherwise, they would have lost their license.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, it's the same type of thing as if you call the IRS to ask for assistance on tax filing, and the IRS agent you speak to gives you the wrong information. They are not in trouble, but you can go to jail for tax evasion or tax filing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The government is never considering the government at fault. But I think we should move on to something a little bit more cheerful.
Yeah, so this is more cheerful, and I moved it up because it very much relates to what we were just talking about. In North Carolina, you do have to get a pistol purchase permit.
Thank you, Jim Crow.
Right, which if all things go well, and again, this was another article posted by John Richardson over at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money. Both a wonderful guy and a very knowledgeable guy. But in North Carolina, apparently the general process, if you wish to buy a gun, or buy a handgun, you have to go down to the sheriff's office, fill out your form, pay $5, and they run you against an instant background check, and you should be done in a couple minutes. And
it's like a NICS check,
right?
Or a TICS check, but they do it right there at the sheriff's office,
right? And you have to do it before you buy the gun, not
right.
as you're buying.
A purchase coupon concept.
Yeah, it's a coupon. You exchange this permit for the gun, and then if you want to get another gun, you need to get another one. And like gun nuts in North Carolina who don't have their concealed carry permits, because the concealed carry permit allows you to sidestep this, will just go in and get like 3 or 4 of them, because they're good for like a year, I think.
Yeah, I know one guy, I don't know if he still lives in North Carolina, actually, but years ago when I was doing training in North Carolina, he would go to the gun shows, and before going to the gun show, he'd go to the sheriff's office and get like 5 of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then take him to the gun show, and he might go home with 1 or 2.
And the whole point was the $5 fee, which has been the same. It's just like the NFA, the $200 tax stamp was $200 back in 1932, and it's still $200 today, which is considerably less money.
$5.
Yeah, the $5 was, I believe, the average 1 month salary of a black freedman in North Carolina, and that was the idea, was to price them out. And then furthermore, they had to come into the police station and look the cop in the eye, and that they might, that's another chilling factor. And then furthermore, the cops could say, yeah, it didn't work out.
So David, what's your, what firearm are you playing with?
Oh, my emotional support gat right now is my early 1970s vintage Browning High Power.
Okay. But anyways, and of course, the law does say that the state has, according to this article, 14 days to process the pistol purchase permit, and handgun permit, they have 45 days.
Right. Now, those, just to add to what Oddball was saying about how the fee didn't change, those durations were put in place long before NICS or any other type of electronic database existed.
Right.
Those were in place so that they would have time to go through paper files.
But apparently, in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, the county sheriff what had become known for taking up to a year or more to process the carry permits and the purchase permits. And
we ran into that in New York State quite a bit. So New York State law is that the pistol permit cannot take more than 6 months without a clear reason why. Right. So New York State decided that the 6 months didn't count until it reached the judge's desk.
Right. And I believe, Weird, you were getting close to that being an issue with your carry permit at one point.
I mean, technically speaking, it's pretty bad. Is that the you have 30 days to either get your renewed permit or a department letterhead on why you're being denied.
Right.
And it that those 30 days have taken, for the last 2 times I've renewed every 5 years, have taken close to 3 months each time.
Yeah. And I believe You said at one point when you asked your local police department about it, their response was, you can sue the state. Good luck with that.
Well, that's more of just the general
Yeah.
principle is that a lot of the issues. But the only person that because the local police, so the local police departments do a quick pre-processing, but then it goes to the state police who actually run the background check and
Right.
all all of those things, and it's those guys that are ones that are dragging their
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently, the GOA and the GRNC decided to do exactly that and
Sue the state.
Sued the state over it, and they have won, and it includes a judge's order that the county sheriff will start actually processing these permit applications in the time frame given to him by the law. And
Sorry.
And yes, the sheriff could continue to drag his feet, but once a judge tells you that no, you really need to do something in a timely manner,
cut the crap, do your job, saith the judge.
Judges really don't like being disobeyed.
Yeah, disrespect. There's a great pull quote in the article from the judge's order. The court concludes as a matter of law, plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of success on the merits and are likely to suffer irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, but I know lawyers, and the success on the merits and likely to suffer irreparable harm in the absence of injunctive relief is pretty strong language, as I understand.
Yeah.
And the article does also have a link to the order for those who are willing to subject themselves to legal right.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that. Yes, it is in fact a preliminary injunction, which means the judge is saying, yeah, we're not even, this doesn't even need to go to court. I'm going to go ahead and rule in favor.
Yeah. We're going to give you a chance to unfudge yourself, but if this comes back to us again, we're going to get mean.
Oh, it's not even that. It's the plaintiffs. We're going to go ahead and say that the plaintiffs won.
Nice. So for more good news, I would say, Winchester has been awarded a major contract to design a quote-unquote next-generation ammo facility, primarily for the new cartridge that SIG calls the 277 Fury. So it's going to be Winchester's Lake City plant. And for anyone in the firearms community who has not heard of Lake City Army Ammunition Plant, dude. But it's the United States' only government-owned contractor-operated small-caliber ammunition production facility in the entire country. And Winchester's been awarded that. For a number of years, Federal had that contract. But it comes up for re-bid, or whatever the proper term is, every so often. And this time, Olin Winchester got it. And the company was awarded $51.8 million modification to the contract to manufacture 5.56, 7.62, and 50 caliber ammunition, and also basically modernize so that they can produce this new fancy SIG cartridge. And that's going to be at Lake City, but there'll also be the traditional cartridges at the Oxford, Mississippi plant. So this is a pretty big deal. I mean, I think the last time Lake City was modernized might have been the 70s. I mean, thoroughly. They've had incremental improvements here and there, but I think the last major modernization was the 80s. I'm pretty sure that was under Reagan. So not only is this good for the military getting the best possible quality ammunition that we can get to them, but for those folks who have ever bought a box marked XM whatever ammunition, or M whatever X or F, those are overruns. Every single contractor who gets this, and Federal was famous for it, they'll be tasked to produce X number of millions of rounds for their contract. Well, they've got the machines are still running. They will produce X plus and then sell through dealers, the overrun. So this can also potentially increase the flow of ammunition in those calibers to the general public.
Incidentally, has anybody really gotten a handle on that new cartridge, the 277 Fury?
I've read a few things about it, but the information is still kind of sketchy.
Okay.
It is, from what I understand, it's a 2-piece cartridge case. The base is stainless steel, and the forward section is traditional brass.
Mm-hmm.
Because it runs at approximately 80,000 psi. Now, just to put things in perspective, 7.62 NATO or 308 Winchester is running in the low to mid 60,000 psi. So this is a high-pressure, hot, high-velocity cartridge, which of course translates into a fairly flat-shooting bullet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be interesting once the SIG Fury rifle is in soldiers' hands for a few years, how that pressure is going to affect things with longevity. Because that's quite a bit of punishment. But SIG has a good reputation for doing things right and fixing things that aren't. So we'll see. I mean, I would like to see actual ballistic data on that cartridge, but that's all I've read about it. Who would like to do the next one? I put it up there, but I don't have to. I've been talking.
Yeah, why don't we just cover it, because I really haven't. I'm not super familiar with this.
Well, I'm not super familiar with it either, but it's basically IWI's version of the 360 or Hellcat or
the double stack 9mm pocket pistol.
Right. So it's the IWI Masada Slim, which what was that?
I thought the Masada was was what they sold to Remington for the Bushmaster ACR.
Masada is many things in Israeli tradition.
Okay.
Starting with the fortress that the Romans invested until the defenders committed suicide. So it's a very powerful. But the Masada Slim is a continuation of the Masada line of pistols, developed with a thin profile, compact design.
David, would it be correct to say that Masada is the Israeli Alamo?
Yeah, that would actually be a fairly good analogy.
Cool.
So it's currently a 9mm. It comes with two 13-round magazines, weighs 1.27 pounds empty, 1.4 with magazine, barrel 3.4 inches, white front dot sight, blacked out rear sight. Sight cuts are the same on the Masada Slim as on the full-size Masada, while the slide utilizes the RMS Shield optics cut for direct optic mounting options. Footprint will also allow the user to run a Hollow Sun, SIG Romeo 0, etc. So there is something else that I'm happy to see, is that the manufacturers are starting to choose winners in the RMR footprint. And MSRP is $450. So I think it's going to be a competitor against the Hellcat and the 365 if enough of them can get to market. Because, it's one of those things is there a container full of these floating off the California coast on the back of a cargo ship right now?
Mm.
But IWI has a good, though lesser known reputation in the American market. So that'll be interesting. I'd like to get my hands on one to try it out myself. The Idahoan Show BR-15, an affordable bullpup conversion.
Yeah.
This has been making the rounds, and I was like, we haven't talked about it yet. This has to happen.
Yeah. I mean, this just looks like an April Fool's joke, but I guess it isn't.
No, and to make it more timely, it is something of an abortion.
Oh.
Oof.
Too soon?
Combination of too soon and bad taste.
Well, I can work on the first one. The second one's a lost cause.
Now, I have actually heard somebody talk about a good reason for this thing to exist.
Because it's there.
Well, I mean, there's that. So
let's just explain for anyone who hasn't clicked on the link in our show notes yet.
Yes, for our dear listeners, somebody, and this is part of the 3D printed gun community, comes up with weird stuff. Sometimes it's really cool. Sometimes it's
this.
What were they smoking? And this is somebody decided to bullpup an AR-15, which means the buffer tube actually goes over your shoulder.
Yes. And just to clarify for folks, what is generally meant by a bullpup is when the fire control, the trigger assembly at a minimum, is forward of the magazine and the chain and the bolt and chamber area.
Which also means that the gentleman in the picture of this article is using a red dot sight, and I really can't think of any other sighting system you could use other than a red dot or reflex sight. Because
I can. If it had a free float tube with a top rail, you could have
you could put a scope
aperture rear, or you could have an aperture rear sight at the rear of the rail, because his cheek rest is the Picatinny rail on the upper receiver.
This is true.
And that's just a cheese grater waiting to happen if it was anything more than 223.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing. The thing last week when I posted the picture, I didn't have the article, to which I said, and Weird, get the edit button ready, what I say, what in the cherry-filled call is this?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's hideous.
Yes, I mean, that picture has been making the rounds of every single gun group I'm a part of, so I figured it has to be discussed. It's just, wow.
And the red dot is mounted on the gas block.
Yes.
Because it has to be that far forward to actually be useful.
Well, the rifle that he's applied this to has a standard carbine round handguard on it. Mm-hmm. So it's either the upper receiver or the gas block. There's no in between to mount it to. Like I said, a free float gas tube with a top rail, he would have probably mounted it a little further back. But it's a red dot, so it's fine where it is.
And the folks that designed this conversion did absolutely nothing to try to meld I'm not sure lower is the proper term.
Chassis.
Adapter chassis.
Lowest.
I'm gonna say it's a bullpup chassis for a standard AR, because literally all you do with the AR is you take the buttstock off, you take the pistol grip off, and you put this thing on.
And then you bolt this thing on around the pre-existing lower receiver.
Yep. It's got a clearance cut for the magazine. The trigger, interestingly enough, the trigger is akin to the classic 1911 stirrup style trigger. It goes around the magazine on both sides. So, I mean, it's going to be a sucky bullpup trigger pull, because pretty much any bullpup where you are pushing the trigger through a linkage is going to be kind of sucky.
Right.
Mushy.
That being said, apparently, with the way that they designed the trigger, with it going around the magazine, so you have actually essentially two rods, even though the trigger and the transfer bar to the actual trigger are one piece. But the what would be the two rods going back, and then there's a nether spot up near the front that goes into a channel. So they did do a lot to stabilize it.
Yep. What I think would have been better, though, would have improved the trigger, is same exact design, but have at the rear of the stirrup, instead of pushing against the face of the trigger, have a slot that the trigger would sit in, so that it's actually pulling the trigger to the rear instead of pushing the trigger. Because the biggest problem with most bullpup triggers is that flex when you're pushing against the trigger.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how rigid transfer bar is, there's going to be some flex.
Right.
Versus if you're pulling it, it could be a piece of string.
Exactly. So I think that might have, and that might be their Gen 2 version, assuming they haven't decided, yeah, okay, we did this, on to the next crazy thing.
But
although I do wonder, could this be a resume for Keltec?
Oh, I hate that you're right.
It has what looks like hex bolts holding it together.
Have you had a chance to tour Keltec?
Yes,
No,
I have.
I would love to. Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked Aaron, yeah.
Sorry.
There can only be one of us, honey, and you're not fabulous enough.
Not even close.
And was there a above ground swimming pool somewhere in there entirely filled with cocaine?
Or meth.
Wasn't on the tour.
What about,
Notice she is very carefully not saying there wasn't one.
What about the little toy train filled with cocaine that rides into the meeting rooms?
I didn't see that either. What I did see that left my jaw dropped was, KSGs are unusual to find out in the wild, and I'm told that it's easier to find them in Florida than in other places.
Makes sense.
I think I've maybe seen one in a store, but when we toured it, there were just so many of them that were being like Cerakoted and other things. The best way I can describe it is that it was like seeing, a massive herd of unicorns racing across the plains. One
majestically.
One is a rarity, but oh my God, there are hundreds here.
So I just took a look at one of the images in the article, and amongst the additional hardware listed is 14 6x32 hex nuts. So this is Keltec worthy.
George Kelgren could not be reached for comment.
In fairness, the 3D printer community, they love them some hex nuts. So.
Oh yeah, hex nuts and all thread.
Yeah,
or threaded rod. Yep, but it's hysterical and brilliant.
And
several people in the comments have mentioned, could you do that using a BRN 180 upper?
Yes,
because that would get rid of the buffer tube hanging over his shoulder.
And I have a 3D printer.
Yes,
and a spare AR.
You need to do this thing and then take it out to Oleg's for photo op. Just make sure you look angry.
Double scum.
Don't look embarrassed, even though we know you will be. Look angry. Scowl.
Oh, no. After some of the Trash Panda guns I've brought out to his place.
There's pictures of Oleg shooting a Lorson, and he's angry.
Oleg, actually, I've talked to him. He doesn't get to shoot as nearly as much as people think.
No.
Well, it's because he spends all his time shooting.
Yes, exactly. He's on the other side of the camera, not the other side of the firearm. He spends plenty of time handling them as he hands them to or from the model.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really would like to get more trigger time, as we all. But this thing is just so ridiculous. I think that he would be quite entertained.
I mean, one of the things that he said that he instantly wanted to borrow for photos was an Ivor Johnson 22 long rifle PPK clone.
Well, I happen to have one, says Oddball.
So, well, I mean, I showed up to his house with that. He's like, can I borrow that for some pictures?
For a year?
Yeah, that was one of the ones that the first year of ownership, it spent more time at Oleg's than it did at my place.
And how many of your knives does he still have?
Actually, I think I might have all my knives back from.
Wow.
I think there might be a couple swords that are still there.
Oh, okay, edged weapons. I should have just left it as edged weapons. Pedant. Sharp, pointy things.
Only you would make that distinction.
It's a distinction.
It's an important distinction.
It absolutely is a distinction. What I didn't communicate was, you have swords. Not many people have swords. Of course you do. So it's like, I got all my knives back, but no, not my swords. And we're not even going to talk about my pole arms.
Okay, I don't have any pole arms, but I do have swords. So obviously, I need to up my game.
I'm thinking about getting a sling blade
and some biscuits and gravy.
Oh.
So the next article in the show notes, Weird, I put up there for you.
Oh, I'm looking at this and I really, really like it. Yeah. It's a firearms blog review of the Wilson Combat SFX9 15 round carry pistol. So this is based on a staccato pistol, which is
Thing of beauty.
The artist formerly known as STI.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been worked over by Bill Wilson into just in case you thought that the staccato pistols weren't amazing enough, then Wilson comes in, and it's a double stack 9mm 1911 that holds, is it 15 plus one? Yeah,
15 plus one. Yeah. Did you happen to note the MSRP? Paragraph below the first image.
Paragraph below the first image. There it is, just under $3,000. In that case, I'll take 4.
Right.
So when you go out to buy your electric car, you can pick up one of those.
Exactly.
But I love the fact that in the article it mentioned Wilson sent me the pistol as well as 300 rounds of their ammunition, including hollow points and target loads. I shot all of this as well as 650 rounds of my own range ammo and 50 rounds of a variety of different types of commercial carry hollow points. I'm like, dude, it's 1,000 rounds of 9mm. You know what the street value of that is?
One left testicle?
I mean, do you know how many gallons of gas that is?
One left testicle's worth?
Pretty much. Well, actually, no. According to the article that I saw, that's 35,000.
35,000 gallons?
$35,000.
He shot $35,000 worth of ammunition?
No, that's what certain medical facilities will pay for a testicle.
Oh.
Sorry, I wasn't clear there. I apologize. but the response was funnier. But yeah, but it's basically an STI double stack 9mm 1911 with a 3 1/4 inch barrel.
I was just trying to come to terms with how anyone could shoot $35,000 worth of ammo, and not have it be one of those multi-barrel,
right?
Whatever chain guns, Gatling guns, whatever. It's the only way I can, Knob Creek. Good God.
It's not a Dylan minigun event, right?
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say, I don't see actually in the article, it talks about lightening the gun, but it doesn't mention that I can see. It says it's 1.2 ounces lighter than the SFX, but if you don't know how much an SFX weighs, it's not really. So I don't know the weight, which is one of the things, but Weird has gone on about the Wilson SFX, so I figure.
Well, actually, the big one I go on is the EDCX9.
EDCX9, sorry.
This is right up there.
Yeah, this is its little brother. But I know your love for the Wilson double stack 9mm 1911s, so I thought this would make you giggle. Chortle?
Guffaw.
Yeah.
Well, I'm amusement, but not humor. Titter. Yes, that I think will be the right word.
Mm-hmm. So we shift gear to the next gun?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Which is the one I mentioned earlier, and I tossed this in here. So when I was talking about Gun Culture 2.0 versus Hardware 1.0, I mentioned the Walther PDP F series, and this is one of the guns that is coming out now that's specifically engineered, not just colored, for the female market share. And friend of shooters everywhere, Tatiana Whitlock, the instructor from Maine, was actually involved with consulting with Walther in this design.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at the article, scroll down to the bottom, there she is shooting around a barrel.
There she is.
So one of the biggest complaints I get from my female students is the distance between the rear of the backstrap at the top and the front face of the trigger. That's the largest span of getting the web of your hand in the right place and still being able to get enough finger on the trigger. If that's too long, you either have to shift your hand or you don't get enough finger on the trigger. Either way, your shots are going to be off. So they went with a reduced circumference grip. So it's smaller in that critical dimension to make it easier for a shooter with small hands. And that also involved adjusting the trigger location to bring that a little further back as well. So they moved the grip, the rear of the grip forward slightly, moved the trigger back slightly, which is going to have a huge impact on fitting smaller hands. And they also developed, I don't know what unicorn dust they use in it, but they claim a 20% reduction in slide racking force.
Slide racking what?
Slide racking force, the force required to rack the slide.
Sounds like they changed the strength of the spring.
Well, doing that would increase recoil and shorten the life of the gun.
Okay.
So my theory is they just came up with some better geometry for how the parts interact. Because if the EZ 380 and EZ 9 have standard strength recoil springs, but it's hammer fired. So you're not fighting against the striker as you're pulling the slide back. Whereas this is striker fired, but one of the things it mentions, it's got a 2-piece striker that somehow is involved in reducing the force required to break the slide. So it's a big step forward. The MSRP is $699, which is really not out of line for the Walther carry guns. But I think this is another one of those hardware 2.0 to catch up with culture 2.0. So I think that's pretty cool, very exciting, and Weird. Maybe you and Ryan could talk about it in more detail as more details emerge.
Absolutely. All right, and this ties in very nicely with our anniversary issue.
Mm-hmm.
Mec-Gar USA, the magazine maker, celebrates its 30th year anniversary.
30th year of U.S. operations.
Okay. Oh, do they used to operate outside the United States?
They're based out of Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are the OEM for Beretta, I believe. And I think weren't they part of Beretta originally?
I don't know. And there's actually a rather large firearms manufacturing culture in Italy. So yes. I don't know if they were originally part of Beretta or if they sprung up independently.
Okay. I thought I had read somewhere that they had been part of Beretta but had split off, which didn't quite make sense to me because I can't imagine Beretta letting them go. But stranger things happen in business.
Yeah.
But still, they've been in the U.S. for 30 years as of April 20th. If you want to buy an aftermarket magazine for your gun, and there are aftermarket magazines available, really Mec-Gar is kind of the go-to. If you want to buy an aftermarket magazine for your gun and there is no aftermarket magazine available, that's because Mec-Gar is probably making it already for the OEM.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was at it was either the NRA annual meeting or the Concealed Carry Expo, I stopped by the Mec-Gar booth and asked when they would be able to produce non-Smith & Wesson marked magazines for the M&P 9 2.0. They said, well, we're still under contract to Smith & Wesson, so it's like, yeah, I know. I'm just wondering when we can start expecting to see them. Not that they're particularly expensive magazines. The Smith ones are like $30, $35 somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that is because they've got the Smith logo. Yeah. And if Mec-Gar produced them with Mec-Gar markings, they'd probably be $5 to $10 less.
Yeah, and there is, quite honestly, if you have a decent named pistol, there is, I would say, probably a 50-50 shot that Mec-Gar made the magazines that are in your pistol.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we should we got one more note, and then this will be a long episode. So
yeah, I just threw this on just
we still have to get to the movie,
right?
You jerks.
Ooh,
I did not click on this link, and I just did, and that is my honest reaction. Is me likey.
Yeah, so Beretta,
very very similar to the Blazer, which was very popular in Europe. I don't know if they still are made, but they were very popular in Europe.
They were made very recently, so I don't know if the.
What we're talking about is.
Oh yeah, we should probably let them know.
Is Beretta has just announced. I forget the name of the trade show, but the European equivalent to SHOT Show just recently happened. And Beretta has announced that they are going to, or they are producing a new straight pull bolt action rifle.
I believe that's the IWA Outdoor Classic International Trade Fair.
Yes. And really, I posted this up not just because Beretta is coming out with a new rifle, although yes, I am a Beretta fanboy.
Really? None of our listeners knew that.
But there's, I noticed that there were actually a number of manufacturers coming out with or showing off their straight pull bolt action rifles. And a couple of them, including Beretta, were talking about bringing them to the States. The straight pull bolt actions have been fairly popular in spots in Europe where getting a semi-auto or the like is legally challenging.
We'll be polite. It's legally
challenging. Yeah. So with the straight pull, you can get, for a manually operated rifle, you can get very fast follow-up shots. Similar to pump action or
well, since the Winter
action.
Olympics just recently happened, and Eddie, if you're a gun nut worth your salt, you watched at least a little bit of the biathlon.
Yeah,
and
those 22s, they basically tick tock.
Exactly. Those were not semi-autos. You could probably tell, but yeah, they are straight pull 22s.
Yeah.
I said, straight pull has been not even counting the Swiss systems. Straight pull has been popular in Germany and such, most of the Central European countries, for quite a while. The one that I was thinking was not the Blazer. The Blazer was the newer iteration. It was the Heim SR30.
Okay.
Which was introduced in the 90s.
Okay. Yeah, and Savage recently came out with the Impulse that is also a straight pull. And
yeah, which is odd. For all its popularity in Europe, straight pull just never really caught on in the U.S. Probably because, as was mentioned, semi-auto is readily available.
Right, and it didn't have the nostalgia cachet of lever action.
Right. Whereas in Europe, the Schmidt-Rubin and the follow-on designs were pretty much the love affair.
Right.
And let's be honest, like the primary use for this in the United States would be mostly for hunting. And because there's certain, like, I know Pennsylvania specifically outlaws hunting with a semi-auto rifle, and I'm sure that there's other states that do that as well.
Interestingly enough, in New York, you can hunt with an AR-15. You might not be allowed to own it, but you can hunt with it if you have one.
Yeah, ironic.
Oh, and I just looked it up. Blazer started producing their straight pull action in 1993. So apparently Blazer, the R8 is the newest version.
Yeah, but I would argue that most of the time for hunting, you're not needing quick follow-up shots. So a bolt action is as good as a straight pull.
And interestingly enough, in the history of straight pull bolt action rifles, or straight pull manually operated rifles, I should say, the U.S. was right there at the beginning, pretty much. The Lee Navy the model 1895 was a straight rifle. It also introduced the U.S. to the first high-velocity small-bore 6 millimeter, I think it was. So, but for whatever reason, the Americans preferred the Mauser style.
Nope. Well, what's interesting too is I just realized I was looking at the calibers. It's in 300 Win Mag. Hells yes.
You'd prefer 375 H&H, I know.
I mean, that'd be pretty rad too. 308 Winchester. It's pretty reasonable. And then 30-06. And I just is this the America specific model? Because
probably.
No, from what I understand, that's I don't get it either.
I would think there'd be some more Euro type cartridges since it is an Italian made rifle.
Well, and also coming out with a new bolt action these days and not having it in 6.5 Creedmoor.
Right?
Oh, also that.
Or for hunting, 243 is still an extremely popular, lighter hunting cartridge. But what's interesting to me is they've got 300 Win Mag, they've got 30-06, which are both long action calibers. Then they've got 308, which is a short action caliber. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that the guns have two different action lengths. There's nothing that I saw. It apparently seems to be fairly convertible, but the action length doesn't change, which means that going forward, basically anything up to the maximum length of 30-06 300 Win Mag or down to the minimum length of 308 is functional.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of cartridges.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, I think that we have amply celebrated the 200th episode of the Assorted Calibers podcast.
Wait, one last thing, Weird, just to make you squeal a little bit.
Oh.
Do you know what cartridge is about the same overall length as 30-06 that could be chambered in this rifle?
4570?
458 Win Mag.
Ooh. Elephant medicine.
I thought that would make you giggle.
Bad elephant. Go lay down. But yes, I would like to, for the 200th time, thank each and every one of our listeners, and a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, but they also get bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, which will have Erin singing. The ACP film tracks, you heard David mention about a movie. We are not doing one tonight.
It's not even midnight.
It will be by the time I'm done. And of course, the ACP Mag Dump.
Oh, right. I need to say something. Sorry. Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I got a blog. It's called WeirdWorld.com. I'm also on Handgun Radio. It's all right.
And
I
was going to toss it where I can be found.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
I can be found on Blue Collar Prepping at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com.
And how about you, Oddball? Where can you be found?
In the local gun shop looking for a Trash Panda gun.
Well, there's that. And mostly here, in theory, I should be writing some stuff for gunscarstech.com, which hopefully Adam and I will get back to getting that ice cream machine going.
When can we expect another Oddball's Corner Pocket segment?
Soon.
Or, if not that, story time from Anya.
Well, you have to remember, it wasn't my idea for me to be on this show. It was your idea.
It wasn't my idea. I was dragooned into this as well. Or should I say Shanghai?
Shut up. You know you love it.
Yeah.
And Erin, the world knows nothing about you. Who are you and why are you here?
She is a relative stranger in these parts.
Why, Mr. Beard, you rapscallion carpetbagger. Little old me Oh, I'm just a Southern belle. Just a little girl who doesn't really know much about firearms, but I do enjoy hanging with the menfolk as they talk for hours and hours about caliber. Oh, I do declare.
Waiting for that.
And
Our
Erin
own Southern Belle.
Erin is an absolute big deal because Blazing Sword and Pink's Pistols. And who's also a big deal is Nate Spencer, who is doing our lovely music as we speak right now. No, he's not. It's pre-recorded.
Hopefully he's sleeping right now.
Yes.
Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Nate Spencer. Nate Spencer. La la
Oh, you
la
got
la
it?
la. I don't know the lyrics. Ding ding dong. Ding ding dong.
All right, we are getting
You gotta tie that clip of Erin singing right after the other clip of Erin singing on the blooper reel. Just so people can ride the elevator from the bottom.
Erin, put us out of our misery.
Our octave range is assorted, and so is our podcast.
Hang on. Our octave range is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. It would help if one of us could carry a tune in a bucket. Jeez, David. Weird and I were in tune, and then you come in and you were like, I don't know if you were flat or sharp, but
minor third. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, sweet. Well, it's time to go.
Ba-ba-do-ba-bum.